Should I wrap each piece individually, or is layering them with paper enough for you? The voice of the shop assistant, a young girl with eyelash extensions so long they looked heavy, reached Althea as if through a thick layer of cotton. Althea, a neurosurgeon with 10 years of experience, felt less like a life-saving doctor today and more like a lemon that had been squeezed completely dry. She had just spent 7 hours at the operating table dealing with an aneurysm that refused to cooperate. But Althea had prevailed, just as she always did. She blinked, trying to clear the fog of exhaustion, and looked down at the counter. On it sat delicate, ivory-colored porcelain with a gold rim. It was the exact set Dante had mentioned 6 months ago while flipping through a vintage lifestyle magazine. "Wrap each one separately, please," she said, leaning her elbow against the glass display case. "It is a gift for my husband, for our anniversary." "Oh, congratulations!" The girl brightened up, her hands moving nimbly with the packing paper. "Is it a big one?" 7 years, Althea replied. "The copper anniversary, I think. Or maybe wool. I always get those mixed up." "It is definitely copper," the girl chirped. "That means you need something durable. But porcelain? It might be fragile, but if you take care of it, it lasts for centuries. This set, for instance, is from the 1950s. Can you imagine how many people have had tea from these cups and what they talked about?" "Well, I hope they did not break any dishes during their arguments," Althea said with a faint smile. The small antique boutique in downtown Atlanta smelled of old paper and expensive perfume. However, the scent did not come from the clerk, but from the only other customer in the shop, a frail, elderly woman in an old-fashioned hat with a veil. She had been standing in the corner for at least 10 minutes, seemingly hypnotized by a shelf of hand-painted saucers. "That will be $450, the girl announced, tucking the last cup into a box embossed with the boutique's logo. Althea reached into her bag for her wallet. Her fingers trembled slightly from the lingering tension of the surgery. She pulled out $500 bills. "Do you have change, or should I use a card?" "Oh, our terminal went down about 30 minutes ago. I am so sorry," the girl said, spreading her hands apologetically. "Cash would be better. I actually have plenty of small bills in the drawer right now." Althea handed over the money. The girl took the bills, slid open the cash drawer, and began counting out the change, the plastic dividers clicking loudly. At that exact moment, the silence of the shop was broken by the creak of a floorboard. The elderly woman, who until then had seemed like a permanent fixture of the interior, moved away from the display case as silently as a ghost. She walked past Althea toward the exit, but suddenly came to a dead stop. Althea felt the woman's gaze on her, and in an instant the stranger leaned in close to her ear. "Do not take the change from her," she whispered. The voice was quiet, but so clear and commanding that Althea flinched. "What?" Althea turned around, looking at the strange woman in confusion. "Are you talking to me?" The old woman did not answer. Instead, with quick, steady fingers, she snapped open her vintage handbag and pulled out several bills. She shoved the money directly into Althea's hand. "Here, this is exactly $50. Take your box and leave right now." "Wait, I do not understand." Althea tried to hand the money back, but the elderly woman squeezed her palm with a hand that felt dry and burning hot. "Do not touch the money from that register. It has been washed in tears." Althea stood there in utter bewilderment. The situation was absurd. Her exhaustion rushed back with renewed force, stripping away her will to resist. She turned to the shop girl. The clerk was standing there with a handful of bills, her face even whiter than the porcelain she had just packed. The girl's eyes were wide, staring at the old woman with undisguised shock. "I have the change right here," Althea muttered, following a strange impulse. She tucked the old woman's bills into her own wallet. "Thank you. I will just take the box." "Of course," the clerk whispered. Althea picked up the heavy box and walked out into the humid evening air of the city. The breeze hit her face, clearing her thoughts slightly. "Wait, ma'am!" she called out, looking around. But the sidewalk was empty. Or rather, It was full of people rushing toward the train station, but the woman in the veiled hat was nowhere to be seen. It was as if she had simply evaporated. "Well, that is just great," Althea sighed. "I am officially overworked. I definitely need a vacation." She set the box down on a bench, opened her wallet, and pulled out the bills the stranger had forced on her. 2 20s and a 10. They looked perfectly ordinary. Or did they? Between the bills, something white caught her eye. Althea used her nail to fish out a tiny piece of notebook paper folded into quarters. She unfolded it and saw sharp, slanted handwriting written with heavy pressure. "Look where the renovation is, 404-555-0196. Althea's heart skipped a beat. What renovation? Whose number was this? With trembling fingers, she dialed the digits. A ring, a second, a third, a click. "The subscriber you are trying to reach is temporarily unavailable. Please leave a message after the tone." "This has to be some kind of joke," Althea said aloud to the empty street. "A stupid prank." But a cold, sticky feeling of anxiety was already crawling under her coat collar. She tucked the note into her inner pocket, grabbed the box, and headed for her car. The apartment smelled of expensive coffee when she arrived. Althea froze in the entryway, listening. Dante was not supposed to be back until the day after tomorrow. "Al, is that you?" Her husband's voice drifted from the living room. A second later, he appeared in the hallway, looking impeccable as always. His white shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up, and he wore that specific smile that Althea once thought she would sell her soul for. "You said the deal would take until Wednesday." She set the box on the floor. Dante picked her up, spinning her around despite her protests. "I could not wait. I missed you. I settled everything in 24 hours. Can you believe it?" The client was thrilled. He signed almost without looking. "Basically, I flew back to you on the wings of love. Well, and a very fast Delta flight." Althea looked at her husband, and something about his behavior felt off. Normally, Dante was steady, almost stoic. Even his biggest real estate deals were celebrated with a quiet drink. Now, he was practically vibrating with a frantic, nervous energy. "By the way, you look exhausted," he said, his tone shifting to one of deep concern as he helped her off with her coat. "Saving the world again?" "A tough surgery, 7 hours." Althea rubbed her temples. "I bought you a gift." "A gift for me?" Dante laughed, but his eyes were darting around the room. "And here I thought I was supposed to be the one giving gifts. Speaking of which..." He dashed into the room and returned with a massive bouquet of white roses. "Happy early anniversary, baby." "Thank you." She buried her face in the flowers, trying to hide her unease. "Aren't you going to look in the box?" "Of course." Dante began unpacking it with forced enthusiasm. "Oh, Althea, this is the one. You remembered?" "You said it reminded you of your grandmother's house back in Savannah." "Yeah, my grandmother." Dante froze for a split second, turning a teacup in his hands. His gaze clouded over, but then it immediately reignited with that artificial spark. "Listen, this is amazing. Let's have some tea from it right now." "I really just want a shower and then sleep," Althea said softly. "My legs are giving out. Can the set wait until our actual anniversary?" "Whatever you say." He began putting the dishes back into the box much too quickly. "I will clean all this up. You go ahead. Want me to start a bath for you?" "No need. Just a shower." Standing under the spray of hot water, Althea closed her eyes. The image of the woman in the veil flashed through her mind. "Look where the renovation is." They hadn't done any renovations in their apartment in 5 years. Her parents' place was fine. They lived out in the suburbs. Maybe it was just a crazy lady from the street? Althea walked out of the bathroom, wrapped in a plush robe. Dante was sitting in the kitchen, staring at his tablet. When he saw her, he abruptly flipped the device screen down. "Work?" Althea asked, pouring herself a glass of water. "Oh yeah, nothing important. A client is panicking, worried that property values are going to drop. Just calming him down." He smiled, but it looked crooked. "Al, "You know I love you very much, right?" "I love you too," she replied, feeling a cold lump forming in her stomach. "Everything is great with us. Better than ever," Dante said, standing up to hug her from behind, pressing his cheek against her damp hair. "We are a team. 7 years. That is a long time." "A long time," she echoed. The next morning did not start with coffee, but with the wail of an ambulance siren outside the resident lounge windows. "Dr. Beaumont, to ICU 1, a nurse shouted, sticking her head into the office. "MVA, multiple traumas, suspected spinal compression, and hematoma." Althea, who hadn't even finished her lukewarm tea, was already throwing on her white coat. Her personal anxieties were instantly sidelined. The surgeon mode clicked on. In the ICU, there was the usual organized chaos. A young man in his mid-30s lay on the gurney. His face was covered in blood, his clothes cut away. "What do we have?" Althea snapped as she approached. "Elijah Thorne, 34 years old," the duty physician reported. "A semi-truck veered into his lane. He didn't have much of a chance, but luckily the airbags deployed. Traumatic brain injury, closed femur fracture, but the worst part is the 5th and 6th vertebrae. No sensation in his legs." She leaned over the patient. He was conscious, but in deep shock. His brown eyes were unfocused, his lips barely moving. "Where is she?" he whispered. "Were you with a passenger?" Althea checked his pupils with a penlight. "Kayla, my daughter. She was at school. I was supposed to pick her up." The patient tried to sit up, but a grimace of agony twisted his features. "Easy, easy. Stay still. We will take care of everything," Althea said, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. "The most important thing right now is you. We are going to the OR." "No." "Call her." He was struggling to breathe. "Call Margaret Sterling at Social Services. Kayla is alone. She has no one else." "We will call her, I promise. Start the anesthesia," Althea commanded. "Fast. The hematoma is pressing." The surgery seemed to last forever. For 10 hours, Althea rebuilt his spine, piece by agonizing piece. It was surgical jewelry work, requiring superhuman focus. She forgot about Dante, the strange old woman, and the note. There was only the operating microscope, the titanium plates, and the life of this man in her hands. "Blood pressure is dropping," the anesthesiologist yelled 4 hours in. "Althea, we are losing him." "More epinephrine, more plasma." Her voice rang out like steel. "Elijah, do not go. Do not you dare. You have to pick up your daughter. Hold on." And he held on. When Althea finally stepped out of the OR, it was deep into the night. Her legs were aching, and her back wouldn't straighten. She pulled off her surgical cap, letting her hair fall over her shoulders. "How is he?" the chief of surgery asked, meeting her in the hall. "He will live. The spinal cord is bruised, but there is no tear. We will see when the swelling goes down. There is a chance for mobility, but I am being cautious. He is in a medically induced coma for now." "Althea, you are a magician," her boss nodded. "Go home." "No, I will stay. I want to monitor him until morning, and I need to find that social worker. The patient mentioned his daughter." In the morning, Althea went straight to the ICU. Elijah was asleep, tangled in tubes. The monitors beeped rhythmically, drawing the lines of his survival. A stout woman with a clipboard walked quietly into the room. She looked tired and bureaucratic. "Are you here for Thorne?" Althea asked. "Yes, I am Margaret Sterling from Social Services." The woman sighed, adjusting her glasses. "They told me about the poor soul. He was so worried about his girl before he went under." "Kayla, where is she?" "At New Dawn." "Where else?" Margaret replied matter-of-factly, opening her file. "Our temporary shelter. The girl is 8 years old. Her mother died 3 years ago. No other relatives. Elijah grew up in the system himself. So while Dad is in here, the girl is with us, and if he ends up paralyzed..." Margaret trailed off, looking pointedly at Althea. We will do everything possible to make sure that does not happen, Althea said firmly. I hope so. Otherwise, we will have to start the foster care process. She is a good kid, smart, but she hasn't said a word since she got there. Althea felt a sharp pang in her heart. She had no children of her own. Years of treatments, failed IVF cycles, everything had been in vain. Dante always said he wasn't upset, that they were happy as a pair, but Althea knew the way he looked at other people's kids at the park. That evening, she returned home to an empty apartment. Dante had left a note saying he was out showing properties. Strange, she thought. He usually called. The anxiety she had suppressed with work returned. Althea sat on the sofa and picked up her husband's tablet, which he had surprisingly left on the coffee table. She knew the passcode, their wedding anniversary. "Forgive me, Dante, but I am losing my mind," she whispered. The browser was open to the Blackwood Realty website. The owner was Natalie Blackwood, a striking woman with a confident, piercing gaze. Althea scrolled through the search history. Secluded lot, 15 acres. Oakwood Grove subdivision. How to transfer land ownership quickly without spouse's consent. That last search made Althea's blood run cold. Divorce, asset division, mortgage fraud. What? She breathed out. She clicked the next search term. Full service renovation for estate homes. The phrase clicked in her head. Look where the renovation is. Althea bolted upright. The old woman's note. She pulled the crumpled paper from her coat, took out her phone, and dialed the number again. The same result. Althea tossed and turned all night. Her husband returned in the early morning hours, smelling of a perfume that wasn't hers and tobacco smoke, even though he didn't smoke. He claimed he had been at a late dinner with clients. Althea pretended to be asleep. In the morning, she called work to say she would be late. She didn't drive to Oakwood Grove. She went to the shelter. For some reason, she felt this was a crucial link. Elijah Thorne, a single father, a construction accident. The New Dawn shelter smelled of industrial cleaner and something sweet coming from the kitchen. The director met her in the office. "Are you a relative?" she asked somewhat gruffly. "I am Elijah Thorne's surgeon. I operated on him yesterday." The director's face softened. "A doctor? That is different. Have a seat. How is he?" "Stable, though recovery will be long. He wanted to see Kayla. Does she need anything?" "She needs her daddy back alive," the director sighed. "Go to the playroom. She is sitting by the window. She won't talk to anyone." Kayla was a small, thin girl with huge, soulful eyes just like her father's. She was sitting on the rug, sorting through wooden blocks but not building anything. "Hey there, Kayla." Althea knelt down beside her. The girl looked up, her eyes full of a heavy, adult-like sorrow. "Are you from my dad?" "Yes, I am a doctor. I am taking care of him. He is sleeping right now, but he is very strong, and he is going to get better." "He promised me a doll," Kayla said. "A porcelain one, like my mom had." Althea shivered. Porcelain again. "Where is your mom's doll?" "It broke when we moved." Althea nodded quietly, and after talking a bit more, she headed back to the hospital. When she arrived, she was not herself. Her hands, usually as steady as stone, were shaking. She went to the residence lounge for some water. A nurse was there, talking animatedly on the phone. When she saw Althea, she hung up. "Oh, Dr. Beaumont. Someone came by for Thorne." "Who?" "Some lady in a fur coat, looking real expensive. Said she was a work colleague and wanted to know if he would ever be able to work again. I told her only family could get info on ICU patients. She got real mad, huffed out of here, and I saw her get into a black SUV. One of those fancy ones with custom plates." "Probably Natalie Blackwood," Althea whispered, remembering her husband's corporate events. "You know her?" "I think so. Listen to me carefully. No one is to see Thorne. At all. If that woman shows up again, call security and call me immediately. This is a matter of life and death." "Understood. But what is going on?" "I do not know yet, but I am going to find out." Althea whispered. The first half of the day went by in a blur of rounds and charts. Around noon, the nurse came running back into the lounge, out of breath. "Dr. Beaumont! Thorne is fully awake. He can feel his toes." Althea smiled for the first time that day. "Prepare him for transfer to a private room. I will be there soon." She entered the room quietly. Elijah was lying there with his eyes open, staring at the ceiling. Hearing her footsteps, he slowly turned his head. "Where am I?" His voice was like the rustle of dry leaves. "You are at the university hospital," Althea said softly. "There was an accident, a bad one, but the worst is over." He frowned, trying to gather his thoughts. Panic flared in his eyes. "The accident! The truck!" He swallowed hard. "I do not remember a truck. I remember an impact, but not on the road. Do not push yourself. I am your doctor, Althea Beaumont. I performed your surgery." At the mention of her last name, a shadow crossed the patient's face. He jerked as if he had been shocked and tried to pull his hand away. "Beaumont?" he whispered suspiciously. "Are you related to Dante?" Althea didn't lie. "He is my husband, but I am here as your doctor. I saved your life for 10 hours straight. And by the way, I saw Kayla today." The daughter's name acted like magic. The suspicion in Elijah's eyes turned into desperate hope. "Kayla, is she okay?" "She is fine. She's staying at a shelter for now, but I saw her this morning. She's waiting for you. She's a brave girl." Elijah closed his eyes, and a single tear rolled down his temple. "Thank you," he whispered. "I have to tell you something. It is important. In case I do not make it." "Stop it! You are going to make it," Althea interrupted firmly. Elijah opened his eyes again. This time, there was resolve in them. "I have a feeling that was no accident. It was a setup." "Tell me everything you know," Althea said, pulling a chair close to the bed. The man took a deep breath. "I am a civil engineer. I was the site foreman for Oakwood Grove. Ever heard of it? The luxury subdivision?" "Yes." "Luxury," Elijah scoffed, then winced in pain. "Cardboard boxes in pretty wrapping. The developer is a firm called Blackwood Realty. Natalie Blackwood is the owner, and your husband Dante was my direct supervisor from the client side." Althea clenched her hands so tightly her knuckles turned white. "And?" "A month ago, I found out they were pouring the wrong grade of concrete for the foundations. The rebar was thinner than the plans called for, and they were using cheap, flammable insulation instead of mineral wool. They were cutting corners on everything. The difference was going straight into their pockets. We are talking millions, but the scariest part is the soil. It is unstable. Without proper slope reinforcement, those houses will slide into the ravine within 2 spring thaws, taking people with them." "My God," Althea breathed. "I gathered documents, copies of invoices, photos of the hidden work, material samples. I was a naive fool. I went to Dante thinking he didn't know. I thought the contractors were pulling a fast one. He just smiled and said, 'Good job, Elijah. You are very observant. Leave the folder with me. I will handle it.' He even promised me a bonus." Elijah paused to catch his breath. "The next day, I was leaving the site. That evening, a black SUV cut me off. 3 guys got out and beat me until I lost consciousness. I woke up here. They probably put me back in my car and pushed it onto the highway, right into the path of that semi, to make it look like an accident." "And the folder with the documents?" Althea asked quietly. "Gone, just like my phone." Silence hung in the room. Althea felt a cold rage simmering inside her. She wanted to scream, but she just adjusted the patient's blanket. At that moment, the door swung open. "Althea, there you are!" She flinched and spun around. Her husband was standing in the doorway. He was holding a designer bag from a high-end restaurant and a bouquet of lilies. He looked perfect. Fresh shirt, sincere smile. "Dante," Althea's voice wavered. "What are you doing here? No visitors allowed." I am not a stranger. I am a husband bringing his favorite doctor lunch. You haven't eaten all day." He stepped into the room, beaming with charm, until his eyes landed on the patient. Dante froze. The smile slid off his face like a poorly glued mask. He turned pale. His eyes darted from Elijah to Althea and back. "Thorn!" escaped his lips before he could stop it. Elijah looked up at him. There was no fear in his eyes, only cold hatred. He remained silent, clutching the edge of the hospital sheet. "You two know each other?" Althea asked in a frigid tone, stepping between her husband and the patient. Dante instantly regained his composure. "I think we have met." He shrugged nervously. "He is the guy from the accident, right?" "Poor soul. I supervised a project where he worked. Wow, small world." He took a step toward the bed, and Althea saw Elijah tense up. "Get well soon, buddy," Dante said, but his eyes were a clear threat. "You are lucky my wife has golden hands." "Dante, please leave," Althea said. "What?" He turned to her, feigning confusion. "Leave the room. The patient has tachycardia. He cannot be stressed. I will take the food and meet you in the hall." Dante held her gaze for a second, studying her, trying to figure out how much she knew. Then he forced another smile. "Of course, sweetheart. I will wait in the hall." Once the door closed, Elijah exhaled, and the monitor's beeping slowed down. "They are going to get rid of me," he whispered. "If those people find out I'm alive and I remember everything, they will finish the job." "Do not be afraid." Althea leaned in close. "I do not let anyone hurt my patients." Elijah gave a weak nod. "I trust you." Something shifted in Althea's heart, but she suppressed the urge to cry and left the room. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. The evening at home felt like a scene from a bad play. Dante was pacing back and forth, nervously fiddling with his cufflinks. Althea sat at the table, mechanically chewing a salad she couldn't taste. "You are acting strange today," Dante started, stopping in front of her. "Silent all evening." "I am tired. A tough patient. You know that." "That Thorn guy." Dante narrowed his eyes. "You spent almost an hour in his room before I showed up. What were you talking about?" "His condition? His prognosis? His daughter is all alone, Dante. He is worried." "Ah, the daughter," Dante sneered. "Such touching concern. But you do not worry about your husband. Our anniversary is right around the corner, and you are running around after this loser." "Loser?" Althea slowly raised her eyes. "Why did you call him that? You said you barely knew him." Dante faltered, but then immediately went on the offensive. "Because normal men do not get hit by trucks and leave their kids as orphans. I am tired of this, Althea. You live at that hospital. I am nothing to you. I work like a dog so we can have a life, a home, and you look at me like I am the enemy." He grabbed a chair and slammed it onto the floor. Althea didn't even flinch. She looked at the man she had lived with for 7 years and saw a stranger. "You are not working like a dog. Lately, you have been lying. To me and to everyone else." "What did you say?" Dante froze, breathing heavily. "I said I am very tired and I want to sleep. You should sleep in the guest room." She stood up and walked out of the kitchen, feeling his hateful gaze on her back. That night, for the first time in their marriage, Althea locked the bedroom door. The next day, she gathered her courage and called her childhood friend, Octavia. They met in a small coffee shop on the outskirts of town, away from prying eyes and cameras. Althea looked at Octavia, a successful investigative journalist, and remembered a different girl from their school days. It was 7th grade, February. A gray, slushy day. Althea had found Octavia in the back corner of the gym, shaking with silent sobs. Next to her was a Valentine's card, crudely cut from cardboard. It said, "Pigs do not get love. Stay in the pen, fat Octavia." Althea had picked up the card and torn it into tiny pieces. "Who did this?" she had asked. "Vance and his friends," Octavia had sobbed. "They are right. I am a cow. Octavia had reached for a bag of cookies, her only comfort for stress. Althea did something that changed their friendship forever. She knocked the bag out of her friend's hand. "Genetics is eye color and blood type," Althea had said harshly. "What you are doing is eating your pain. Stand up. We are going to my house. You are going to be my first patient." That evening, Althea had drawn up a plan. No starving ourselves. We eat 5 times a day. Small portions, no sugar, no soda, and 2 liters of water. And we move. Every morning, we run at 5:30. By 9th grade graduation, Octavia had lost 30 pounds. She had walked into the assembly in a navy blue dress, and the fear was gone from her eyes. When that same boy Vance tried to make a joke, Octavia had looked him up and down and said loudly, "Vance, I got fit and pretty. You are still just a jerk with crooked teeth. You cannot build brains in a gym." The room had erupted in laughter. Now, that same sharp woman was listening to Althea's story without interrupting. "Well, well," Octavia breathed when Althea finished. "I had heard Blackwood Realty was shady, but this? Attempted murder is big league crime, but we need proof. Elijah's word against Dante's reputation means nothing. They will just call him brain damaged from the accident." "You underestimate me," Octavia smirked. "I will dig up everything on them, down to the color of their accountant's shoes. You saved my life back then, Al. I am in." That evening, Octavia called. Her voice was buzzing. "Althea, sit down. I looked into Natalie Blackwood. She and your Dante have known each other for 15 years. They were in the same business program at Georgia State. And get this, they had a shell company together 10 years ago. They were laundering money from public tenders." 10 years, Althea whispered. "We have been married for 7. That means they never really broke up. You were a convenient shield, a successful realtor, and a doctor wife, the perfect image. Natalie is his real partner, in business and, I am sorry to be blunt, in bed. She is the beneficiary of all his deals. All the assets he supposedly buys for clients often end up with straw men connected to her." Althea felt her world crumbling, but instead of tears, a cold resolve took over. "What do we do?" "Hide that patient, Elijah. If they realize he is talking, they won't stop. Getting to him in a hospital is easy. One wrong IV bag and boom, heart failure." Althea planned the rescue mission like a spy operation. She visited an old friend, a retired notary named Mrs. Sterling. "So, the girl is in a shelter and the father is in danger?" Mrs. Sterling asked, adjusting her glasses. "A bad business, but we can fix it. Temporary guardianship. I will help you draft the papers. We will say you are a long-time family friend." In one day, Althea had the documents. The chief of surgery, who respected her immensely, signed off without asking questions. That evening, Althea organized a private transport for Elijah. "Where are we going?" Elijah asked as he was loaded into a private ambulance. "To a rehab center called The Pines," Althea whispered. "It is miles away, in another county. They have private security, and no one knows you are there. I have paid for the first month." "Althea!" He squeezed her hand. "Why are you doing this? I am a stranger. And Dante? Your husband?" "He stopped being my husband the moment he decided a life was worth less than a piece of land," Althea replied coldly. Dante didn't notice Elijah was gone until the next day. He came home in a rage. He came home. "Where is he?" he roared, before even taking off his coat. Althea was in the living room, reading. Next to her, curled up on the sofa, was Kayla. The girl woke up, looking terrified. "Quiet down, you will scare her," Althea said. "What child is this?" Dante froze, staring at the little girl. "Is that Thorne's kid? Have you lost your mind?" "This is my home too. She is here legally. I have temporary guardianship." Dante's face turned purple. He stepped toward the sofa. "Where is your father? Where did your new mommy hide him?" Kayla hid her face in her hands. "Do not you dare." Althea stood up. She was shorter than him, but she seemed to tower over him now. "Do not speak to her like that." You are going to tell me what to do? Dante grabbed her shoulders. You are playing with fire, Althea. Natalie will crush you. Where is Thorne? Get your hands off me! Althea's voice rang like steel. She looked him in the eyes with such contempt that Dante involuntarily let go. I know everything about Oakwood Grove, the forged inspections, the materials, what you did to Elijah's car, and I know about your mistress. Dante backed away. You are lying. Try me, Althea smirked. If a single hair on Elijah's or Kayla's head is touched, a folder with copies of everything Elijah gathered goes straight to the district attorney. It was a bluff. She didn't have the folder. But Dante didn't know that. Fear flickered in his eyes. He stormed out of the apartment, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. Dr. Althea? Kayla asked quietly. Is he going to hurt us? No, honey. Althea hugged her. He is a coward, and we are strong. The next day, Octavia called. I found a witness, a guy named Vance Gentry. He worked as a mason at Oakwood Grove. They stiffed him on his wages, and he is pissed. He is scared, but he agreed to talk if we keep him anonymous. They met Vance in an old industrial zone. I do not want trouble, he muttered. Those people have friends everywhere. They are the ones who will have trouble when we put them away, Octavia said, turning on her recorder. Elijah was a good foreman, Vance began. He and Dante had a huge fight in the trailer. Then Elijah went for his rounds, and Natalie Blackwood's car pulled up. I saw them both messing with Elijah's car. Dante took a thick blue folder and gave it to Natalie. She gave him a fat envelope. Then they were under the hood. I am no mechanic, but that evening Elijah drove away and, well, everyone knows what happened. A blue folder? Althea whispered. They had taken the evidence before the crash. Returning home, Althea remembered the elderly woman in the shop. How did she know? Look where the renovation is. She drove back to the antique boutique. The display window was dark. Workers were taking down the sign. A for lease sign hung on the door. She stepped into the fabric shop next door. Excuse me, Althea asked the clerk. Did the antique shop close? Yeah, moved out overnight. The clerk quit, said she was done. The owner is some collector from New York. What about the elderly lady in the hat? Is she the owner? No, the clerk said. She just hung around. She used to stare at that porcelain set in the window. She told me her son had one just like it. He was a builder. Died in a car crash 5 years ago. Said his brakes failed while he was coming from a job. She believed he'd gotten mixed up with some bad people. She called that porcelain blood-soaked. I haven't seen her since you bought it. Althea felt a chill. It wasn't just a warning. It was a cry for help from the past. Leona Sterling had seen her son's fate repeating in Elijah. Althea called Elijah. Elijah, we found out about the foreman who died 10 years ago. It wasn't an accident. They get rid of anyone who stands in their way. We need the originals of those documents. You said the copies were gone, but where are the originals? There was a pause. I knew you would ask, Elijah said. I do not trust digital files. Look at Oakwood Grove, house number 7. It is unfinished. In the basement, in the furnace room, the far wall. 3rd block from the floor, 2nd from the left. I didn't use mortar there. I used spray foam inside. It looks like solid concrete. There is a flash drive and a ledger inside. We are going, Althea said. The night was moonless. Oakwood Grove was shrouded in fog. Octavia parked in the tree line. Ready for some breaking and entering, partner? I am a surgeon, Althea said, pulling on a black beanie. Cutting things open is my job. Vance Gentry had helped them get past the gate. House number 7 was a dark, hollow shell. They went into the basement. 3rd block up, 2nd from the corner, Octavia counted. She hit it with a crowbar. The sound was hollow. Althea helped her, scraping her nails, feeling no pain. The block finally gave way. Althea reached into the darkness and felt a cold plastic bag. Got it, she breathed. Inside was a thick ledger and a flash drive. Althea opened the ledger. Tables, diagrams, invoices, and receipts taped to the pages. Dante, you are finished, she whispered. Suddenly, footsteps sounded from above. A powerful flashlight cut through the dark. "Hey, who is down there?" a gruff voice yelled. "Security?" Octavia whispered. "Run!" They scrambled through a small basement window, Althea scraping her shoulder as she tumbled onto the wet grass. They sprinted toward the woods, clutching the bag that was worth more than the entire luxury subdivision. The next morning started with a knock on Althea's door. It was the police and an investigator from the district attorney's office. "Dante Beaumont?" the investigator asked. Dante, still in his silk robe, walked into the hall. "Yes? What is this about?" "You are under arrest for racketeering, grand larceny, and conspiracy to commit murder." Dante turned white. "This is a mistake. Althea, call the lawyer." She walked out of the kitchen, fully dressed and calm as a rock. "You are going to need a very good lawyer, Dante, but I do not think even the best one can help you against the evidence we gave to the DA. "You?" Dante choked with rage. "I will destroy you." "Just take him away," Althea said tiredly. Natalie Blackwood was arrested at her office. She tried to burn documents in a trash can, but she wasn't fast enough. The investigation moved with lightning speed. Elijah's materials were exhaustive. The divorce was ugly. Dante, even from jail, tried to fight for the apartment and Althea's assets. "Tell me one thing," she asked him during a deposition. "Did you ever love me, or was I just part of the business plan?" Dante looked at her with empty eyes. "You were convenient. You didn't ask questions. You were respected, and you believed in the best of people. The perfect wife for a man with secrets." "Thank you for the honesty," she nodded. "Goodbye." Elijah was discharged 6 weeks later. He walked out of the clinic leaning on a cane, but on his own 2 feet. Althea was waiting for him at the gate. Kayla was jumping beside her, clutching a drawing. "Daddy!" The girl threw herself into his arms. "Hey there, grasshopper." Elijah kissed her head, then looked at Althea. "Hey, Doc." "Hey, patient," she smiled. "Ready for a new life?" "To be honest, I am scared," he admitted. "No job, no home." "You have a home," Althea said firmly. "My apartment is plenty big, and we will find a job." At first they lived as roommates, but they slowly grew closer. Althea helped Elijah with his physical therapy, and one evening, as they sat on the balcony, Elijah said, "I thought my life ended under that truck, but it turns out it was just beginning. You saved more than my spine, Althea. You saved my soul." Soon, Elijah had an idea. He had been struggling to get his wheelchair up a steep ramp at a pharmacy. "This is a joke," he grumbled. "Who designed this?" "So redesign it," Althea said. "You are an engineer." She talked to the chief of surgery, and they commissioned Elijah to redesign the hospital's entrance for patients with limited mobility. He threw himself into the work. The result was beautiful and functional. Soon, orders started pouring in from all over the city. Elijah was needed again. A year passed. Their new house smelled of pine and happiness. It sat right on the river, bright and spacious, with no stairs or thresholds. Octavia was there, celebrating a journalism award for her exposé on Blackwood Realty. Mrs. Sterling and Elijah's social worker were there too. Kayla, now 9, was showing everyone her new room. Althea was by the fireplace, arranging books. Elijah came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. He walked without a cane now, with only a slight limp. "Are you happy?" he whispered. "So happy," she replied, leaning her head on his shoulder. "I found something while unpacking," he said, handing her a cup. The ivory porcelain. It had been glued back together. The seams were visible, but the gold rim sparkled. "You found the fragments?" Althea was amazed. "I glued them back. You know, in Japan they call it kintsugi. They repair broken pottery with gold. They believe the cracks make the piece more valuable because it has a history." Althea took the cup. It was imperfect, rough at the seams, but warm. "This is us," she said, tracing a crack with her finger. "Yes, and we are stronger for it," Elijah added. He placed the cup on the mantel, right next to a photo of the three of them, Althea, Elijah, and Kayla, covered in paint during the renovation of their new home. The pines rustled outside and the river flowed on, washing away the sorrows of the past as the lights of their home burned bright. If you liked my story and want to hear more, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to support me, you can do it through Super Thanks. It would mean a lot. In the comments, tell me which city you're watching from and what time it is, so I can see how far my story reaches. I've added 2 more life stories on the screen just for you. Click one now and let's keep spending time together. Much love. See you soon.